Welcome back to Sledgehammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge, and let's talk horror. Now, today I am joined by the amazing trio of Michael, Brandon, and Ryan. How y'all doing today?
Good. How you doing?
Good. Thanks for having us.
It is such an honor for me to have you guys here. Now, before we talk about the reason that I brought all three of you amazing gentlemen on, I want the people that don't know you to get to know you a little bit. So, Michael Ahern is a filmmaker, screenwriter, and community organizer. He works in development at AS220, an art and nonprofit based in Rhode Island. And the work details queer experiences, specifically those on the fringes of the community or those who feel like they do not belong. Now, something I want to talk about with that real quick. What got you interested in starting to do something like that to help to benefit people that are maybe trying to find their voice and come out to who they really are?
That's a good question. I guess I don't know the exact origins. Oh, we got a guest with us.
I'll never be upset about kitties, man.
She always wants to be left alone, and then we have to do something. She's like, "Hello." I'm not sure when that all began. I think, you know, when we grew up, or like I'm a little younger than these two, not by much, but I think like I had a very specific what I saw that was gay was very specific and narrow growing up, and I was like a little terrified because I didn't like, not in a I'm not like one of those gays kind of way, but oh, there she goes. In a way where I just thought I was never going to fit in, and I was like really concerned. I don't know. I think it probably stems from there, and sort of showing that the very narrow, rigid view of like what gay is, or like what the good kind of gay is, or the good kind of gay story or movie needs to be. So I think it just comes from pushing back against that.
Well, and what I love about that is I've said this on the podcast many times. My daughter is part of the LGBTQ plus community, and the way I look at it is we have maybe 100 years on this planet if we're lucky. There's no point in spending any amount of that short amount of time being unhappy, not being who you are, being in fear for yourself. So the fact that you're out there trying to help people, that there's nothing wrong with you. You're normal. This is who you are. If I woke up tomorrow and not and liking women was wrong or disgusting, I couldn't stop. I couldn't change who I am.
Right.
So that's the way I try to word it to people. Like, if that's who you are, that's how you were born. I love you. You have people, you have support groups that are willing to be there for you and help you, to let you know that you're not alone. What you're going through is normal. That's who you are, and don't be afraid of it. Embrace it. So to know you're doing something like that is super special. So thank you for the work that you do with that as well.
Thanks.
But I mean, you also, I mean, you do some more work too, like co-writing, co-directing, Drop Dead Gorgeous from 2020, Saint Drogo from 2023. Now we know that you've done amazing work with, helping out in the community, but what got you into writing and directing?
When I was a kid, I just that for some reason I was always just like writing stories. I don't know when or why it began. I don't know. I was really into like fantasy stuff. I remember like going to see Lord of the Rings and that blowing my mind, and I just always kind of made my own little worlds up, and wrote stuff down. And my best friend growing up, his dad worked at the local cable access studio in our very small town, and so me and my best friend had like access to cameras like at a very young age. So we weren't supposed to, but we took them home, and we like would make stupid movies and videos and like dumb shit all the time. So it all started there. And I didn't think about it for years. I didn't go to school for writing or for directing, or any of that. And yeah, then Monster Makeup showed up. So yeah, it started all there.
That's amazing. And like I said, it's funny because you're talking about how like you didn't go to school, you are a writer director, but I kind of want to bounce over to Ryan, who has a graduate degree in research psychology and loves analyzing the world of ones and zeros, 1001001. So you go from that, you are a skeptic at heart. But you're fascinated by stories of folklore, religion, and superstition, and how they embrace in the dark crevices of the human mind. So, how did you get involved with the team?
So I've been dating Brandon for about 12 years now, and I wasn't involved in like filmmaking or anything like that prior to that. And I guess to a large degree, none of us really were, or at least not seriously. But then within a couple of years of us dating, we sort of came up with this idea, primarily him and Mike and Chris Dalpy, who wasn't here, for our first movie, Death Drop Gorgeous. And I thought it was hilarious. I was kind of there from the beginning, helping out with stuff. And then, when we got into filming, it was one of those things that was just like a ton of fun. And then, there's a ton of stuff to learn along the way too, not having any background in it. So I've sort of found it like a really fun, cool, like educational sort of project. And then just gotten involved more with like technical side of things and editing and all that stuff as we go along. So now I'm like in it to win it, I guess.
I do have to correct myself because I believe that my mind went 80s and said Drop Dead Gorgeous the first time. I meant Death Drop Gorgeous. So I got to apologize because
You're not the first person to do
Yeah,
that.
no, I think I
Right.
do that sometimes too.
I meant no disrespect. I
Oh,
promise
no,
you,
you're
like,
good. You're good.
You're fine.
when you said it, I was like, holy shit, I think I said Drop Dead Gorgeous. What the
Oh,
fuck was I
No, it's
thinking?
okay.
So, yeah, I totally apologize for that.
Don't
That's
worry
my
about it.
fault.
No, it's the point of the title. That's what we're referencing. It's like a drag queen title movie for like a drag queen slasher movie. So don't worry about it. It's supposed to be a pun on
Well,
that.
Well, let me say then, you did your job.
Yeah.
And like you said, I love how like you talk about how, sound production, color, editing, taking on the technical challenges. Like that's a lot of the thankless stuff when it comes to a lot of the mainstream stuff. It's always the writers, the directors, the actors. But when you're doing all, like you said, the technical stuff, the production, the editing, the color design, making sure your clickers are right. Like those are the things that are really a thankless job most of the time. When, especially like I said, the fans, they don't come out like, man, I wonder who did the color correction and editing on this. So I understand being on sets and things. I appreciate the job you do. I know it's not easy. So thank you for all the hard work that you do behind the scenes to make these movies pop and look fantastic. So I do want to say thank you for that as well.
Appreciate it.
Now let's get to the third part of our trifecta here. We got Brandon Perez Sanchez. Did I say it right that time?
Oh, yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I only got to apologize once now. Also a writer, musician, totally inspired by 80s horror, folklore, mythology, black metal, and noise rock, which is like the total antithesis of our lives. One of the co-creators of the full-length Death Drop Gorgeous, Saint Drogo, and the upcoming Queen of the Rats. And you have a novella that is being released, co-written with Splatterpunk Master. I'm never going to do that.
Aaron, I can't even say it. Beauregard.
All right, called The White Bishop. And then you have a solo novella called Recessive Nature, set for release in early 2024. So between the three of you, I think we've gotten every single feather in the cap. So how do you juggle, like I said, being a musician, doing the writing, the directing, also writing novellas? How do you juggle doing all this stuff at once?
Well, the musician stuff has taken a back seat since we started filming and stuff. I haven't really been playing music, but I try to keep myself involved in projects, keep my brain active, and keep myself out of trouble. So moving from being in a band into making movies was fun. It's just as time consuming in a good way, and I really enjoy it. So it's a good process.
Right. And another thing I wanted to talk about, guys, not only do I have all of their social media links down in the description, any of the work they're doing with their charities and stuff, we have all these links down in the description. So make sure you're following them. Make sure you're checking out all the work that they're doing. Now, Death Drop Gorgeous. Holy shit, I'll get it right eventually. Where can people check this out at?
Right now, it's on Shudder. It's also on Tubi, iTunes, and Amazon app. iTunes, yeah. I think it's on some weird like those like cable
Voodoo.
It's on Voodoo. Those like cable stations that you get when you have cable. It's like the movie segments. I've had friends that have watched it on like weird like Comcasty. I don't even know. It's like,
well, I also have the links for that down in the description, so you guys can check that out as well. So if you know me, I'm a huge fan of Shudder. So being able to link up with these three, when I reached out to Brandon, he was like, I would love to do this. Can I bring Mike and Ryan on? I was like, does a bear shit in the woods? Wipe his ass with a white rabbit? Of course. I would love to make this happen. So now I know that, like I said, things got a little crazy with the pandemic and, things kind of got clogged up in the pipeline. But do you guys have anything that you're working on together now that you're going to have coming up in the future?
Yeah, so that's the Queen of the Rats project that I mentioned in the bio too. It's the same team, so Monster Makeup's putting that together. It's pretty much fully casted. We wrote the screenplay at the same time we wrote Saint Drogo. But Saint Drogo was written as our COVID project. It's a like bare bones cast and crew. But Queen of the Rats is going to involve a lot of people, so we could have done that during COVID. So now we're excited to get our hands dirty with this one again. It's definitely in the horror genre. Not as bleak as Drogo, but kind of not as campy as Death Drop Gorgeous. Somewhere kind of right in the middle of the two of them. So it should be pretty fun. Looking forward to eventually getting that out there.
Well, and the best way for you guys to stay updated about that is by following them on social media. And like I said, I have all their links down in the description. So when one project ends, another one begins. And we know that's how that goes. But in order for you guys to make these movies, Death Drop Gorgeous, St. Drogo, and then the upcoming, like I said, Queen of the Rats, horror had to start for you somewhere. So now I would like to go back to the past and talk about what got you started in the horror genre, your first horror movie. And I'm going to start with you first. Do you prefer Mike or Michael?
Either or. Mike is fine.
Okay, just don't call you late for supper, right?
Yeah. Less syllables, whatever's easiest.
So, Mike, your first horror movie was?
The very first one that I remember was the Blair Witch Project, which I'm sure is many people's first horror movie. So it's definitely not a cop out. I remember, distinctly. I mean, we all know the lore around it, and everyone wondering if it was a real video, yada yada yada. So when we're kids, we thought it was we didn't have the access to know that it was not a real video. Oh my god, there she is. I grew up. It wasn't rural. I didn't grow up in a rural town per se, but there was a lot of woods, and we would play manhunt a lot, and so we watched it all. Like my friends in our neighborhood all got together and watched it. It was in the daytime. I remember that we watched it, and we were petrified. And we wouldn't play manhunt for like weeks on end afterwards. It was not. I just remember that sticking with me a lot. Specifically there's this story that old woman tells about how she's like, when she was a young girl, she was like on a pond or a lake, and the Blair Witch came behind her and like opened up her coat, and she was just like covered in hair. And for some reason, that really terrified me. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I was going through puberty, because I went through puberty very early, and I started getting hairy, and then I got really freaked out or something. I don't know. I haven't that far back, but it's probably something to do with that.
Well, and what I love, and I try to explain this to people, and please, guys, understand, I'm not trying to sound condescending here, but if you didn't grow up when this movie was, released and was really being marketed, I don't think you could understand how epic the marketing campaign for the Blair Witch was. We didn't have Google in our pocket at the time, so we had no idea if this was real, if it wasn't. There was no big name actors or actresses in it. It didn't have any opening or closing credits. It was just, it was just incredible. And we didn't know, is this real? Is this not real? And of course, me being a shithead little 14-year-old, green spiky hair. I've told the story on the podcast before. I'll never forget it. Sarah Tuckerman. I was at her house, and I remember I was standing out in her front yard smoking a cigarette, little 14-year-old trying to be a badass. And I was like, that Blair Witch shit is real, man. My cousin, man, they can't find her. Little dumbass, man. So a great movie to start off with, and at least you watched it in the daytime with friends. At least it wasn't like at night alone in a basement. That would have been like 10 times worse. So,
I think we were all so terrified that we deliberately chose to watch it while it was still light out.
That's fucking incredible, man. So how about you, Brandon? What was your first horror movie?
So original question, my first one isn't the one that terrified me the most. So I think my first one that I think I saw to completion, I was terrified of horror movies as a kid. I think I watched Jaws not thinking or knowing it was a horror movie. Got really freaked out by it. But not in like a supernatural way, but just like in being afraid of sharks kind of way. But I think the first horror movie that really got me was Nightmare on Elm Street 2. My cousins were watching it, and they like to fuck with me and forced me to watch this shit. I remember watching it with them, and not even like the whole movie, like a good chunk of it, and just getting so fucking freaked out. My cousin was with some of her friends, and I was trying to be all cool, and then literally ruined my life for the next couple of years.
That's probably one of the darkest versions of Freddy Krueger that we get.
Yeah.
Up until Wes Craven's New Nightmare and the remake, I always put the second, Freddy's Revenge up as just one of the darkest, scariest Freddys. Like, he is just terrifying in that movie. So I don't blame you for being scared of that Freddy. Like, Freddy's not fun. That Freddy's a dick.
Yeah. You're right. You're right. It's definitely like a grit to it too. It's very dark. It's definitely before he became the like kind of like slapstick like cartoon character, which is still fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, it fucked me for years. I had such a problem with Freddy. Like I had to like I try to like, sleep in my parents' room at night all the time, and they'd be like, "Get the fuck out of here!" And then like sleep in the hallway on the floor with like my comforter. I had to get go to a doctor about it and get placed on Benadryl to knock me out at night. So they don't give sleeping pills to kids. But yeah, it was pretty bad.
I've told this story before, so I'm sorry for the repeat stories for repeat viewers, but I grew up with a guy that Nightmare on Elm Street, the OG, was his first horror movie. And after he had watched it, he would not sleep with sheets on his bed. After the scene of the guy getting hanged in the jail cell, like, scared him so bad, he would not sleep with sheets on his bed, like, period. So I get it, man. Like, I love the fact that a horror movie can, affect you that much. I think that's super, super, like, that's what I love about this genre. Like, it's such a different experience for everybody's first horror movie. Some people, they watch it and they're like, fuck this, I'm out. Other people, it's like a drug. And, then you're constantly chasing that dragon, trying to get that feeling, that anxiety again. So that's what I love so much about this genre. But I'm not going to leave you out, Ryan, because this is a very, very, very special movie to me, my friend. Ryan, your first horror movie was?
Well, one of the first ones that I remember was Poltergeist 3. And I remember watching it, like, I liked it. I remember watching it several times as a kid. I don't know why my parents were letting me watch it, but I think I used to rent movies from the library, and I wasn't, I guess, it wasn't super regulated what exactly I was renting. My mom would kind of like let me rent, whatever was cool and what was out. And so I got that, and I remember it's just like there's some terrifying scenes in that movie. I mean, when one that stands out is when she gets standing in the puddle, Caroline standing in the puddle in the parking garage, and then like it lights up and like the demon hands like come out and grab her and like pull her down into it, and like her and her siblings get sucked down. And then the one where she has like her hands on the mirror and like she's looking in the mirror and her face changes. Yeah, and then like it just like pulls her like up the mirror. Yeah, there's some like really creepy stuff in that one. And I remember like being afraid of like puddles for a while after that. Anytime I'd see like a lone puddle like on the sidewalk or in the street, I just was imagining demons coming out. So
Poltergeist 3 gets a bad rep, and we'll talk more about it later, but that movie is extremely underrated. I really think it's one of the most underrated horror films, one of the best horror sequels of all time. It hits on all cylinders. Like, it ups what happened in 1 and 2. You get a lot more Heather O'Rourke in this movie. Unfortunately, they couldn't finish the movie the way they wanted to because she passed away during filming. But I think the scares are amplified. Like you said, that part, she puts her hands on the mirror. We're back. And it pulls her up the mirror, I think it's great the way they do that. And there's a scene towards the end of the movie, and I think it's one of the most effective jump scares of all time. Everything's done, and the aunt and uncle are getting on the elevator, and the aunt's like, I can't wait to get her back home and kick her butt out of our apartment. And the uncle looks at her and he's like,
it wasn't her fault.
Yes, it is!
Yeah.
I remember just that scene as a kid scared me. Like, the first time I seen it, I was like, fuck this, I'm out. No, thank you. So yeah, I've got a lot of very, very fond memories of Poltergeist 3. Ashley and I actually on the channel do another segment called In Defense Of, where we defend horror films that people might not like. And the episode I did for myself was Poltergeist 3. So this is a movie that is very, very special to me. So I started with you last time, Mike, but I'm going to start with you this time, Brandon. We know that your first horror movie was Nightmare on Elm Street 2, and you watched it at quite a young age. Do you remember which scene it was that really affected you the most from the film?
There's a few scenes that when Freddy, the kid's locked in the room and Freddy comes out of his friend's body and attacks him, scared the shit out of me. The weird dogs at the end and like that big like furnace room with the human faces like terrified the shit out of me too. But those are like probably the two biggest scenes in the film. I definitely like was closing my eyes and trying to like pretend I wasn't there most of the film, but trying to look cool at the same time. So I remember those two scenes very specifically.
I think that this one has the most effective and fun Freddy one-liner of all time too.
You are all my children now.
Really cool.
With the hot dogs exploding.
Right. And because to me, like, this is the only time in any Nightmare on Elm Street movie where we really get a Freddy massacre.
Yeah.
You never get that in any other movies because Freddy's always constantly trapped in the dream world. So he's always pretty much one-on-one with people. We don't get a whole Freddy running around the barbecue, killing everybody, throwing them into the pools, fire going up the bushes. Like, again, I think it's one of the most effective Freddy moments in the whole franchise. And just hearing the "You're all my children now," like, still one of my favorite lines from any Nightmare on Elm Street movie ever, man. So I definitely love that part. So Ryan, we know which scenes it was that affect you really with the mud puddle. That was one of the scenes that really got you. But could you tell me what maybe your favorite scene from Poltergeist 3 would be?
Oh God. Let's see.
You got a camera there.
Oh, sorry.
Camera up.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good one. I mean, like, it's been so long since I've seen it, and I'm trying to think of, like, you remember like these impactful, scary moments.
And killer worm.
Yeah, I mean, it's yeah. In terms of favorite, I mean, the thing is, like, with those movies like that, I love, like, I watch it for those moments, like the all the scares. I mean, the guy coming out of like the pool with like covered in ice also was like terrifying to me. And it's so, the thing is, I was at an age where like it was so realistic, like all those, you watch film, I feel at that age where like you don't understand what film is, and so you like think it's real in a weird way. Like I honestly just didn't know how you made movies. It's like you're like 6 years old or 7 or whatever, and it's like, are there, like, you don't realize there's a bunch of crew running around doing shit. And so it's just kind of one of these things that's like another world, and it was like captured somehow on film. And so yeah, I mean, I think it's like, honestly, it's been years and years since I've seen that movie. I just remember it sticking with me. But other than the scary stuff, I'm not sure what I would say my exact favorite one is.
I really do want to recommend you watch it again because it definitely holds up. And there's lines in this movie that I never even realized when I was a kid. Like, there's a part where the aunt is like, it's Carol Ann, blah, blah, blah. And the uncle's like, listen, let's not make it like she's Carrie.
Don't let that pompous ass shrink tell you she's Carrie or Houdini or some damn thing like that.
Which is super funny because the aunt was the bully in the movie Carrie. So like that little,
that's awesome.
Like that little meta moment there. I'm just like, like, we just watched it again for our In Defense of it. I was like, that's fucking genius. Like just that one little line that everybody that's watching that knows is like the Leonardo DiCaprio thing. Like, that's how we all felt watching that moment when we were at my house. But I can't recommend enough to go back and rewatch it. I think you'll really
definitely have to do that. Yeah.
So we talked about the Blair Witch Project, Mike, and what that was your first horror movie and a very effective movie. We talked about a lot of the marketing that came along with that movie. That movie does have 3 films in that franchise now. You have the Blair Witch Project 2, and then the 2016 requel, The Blair Witch Project. Have you seen either one of the sequels to the film? And if so, what were your thoughts on those?
We saw the Blair Witch Project, right?
The new one.
Yeah. I saw that one. I don't think I've seen the second one, actually, now that I think about it. But we saw the Blair Witch or whatever it's called, the one that was a few years ago. They had the drone. I don't know. It's like I think it tying back to the marketing of the movie. Like, we can't. I think we need to accept that you can't capture the magic that was that because of the internet age we live in, right? Like you said, we didn't have Google at our fingertips. You can find someone's IMDb even if they just did a commercial, you know what I mean, nowadays. So it's like there were moments in that new one that I was like, okay, that was like good. I don't remember them, so they must have been that good. Yeah, I don't know. I just, like I said, I don't think you can capture that magic anymore. I think you have to rethink about, if you want people to believe that the movie you're watching is potentially real, you have to like either go pretty extreme or think about the ways in which we consume media and what we have at our fingertips to be effective. So I don't remember most of the new one. I do remember that they had a drone that crashed, and that's I think it. Oh, and then running through the house at the end. I at least was excited that we got a house. I don't know. That house was really cool. And that brief like mirror moment. But then seeing the Blair Witch, we got to see her a little bit, and I was like, "Don't show me her. Like, let her be." And she was like some weird daddy long legs type of thing going. I don't know. It wasn't for me. But
It looked like Slenderman.
what's that?
It looked like Slenderman.
Yeah. Oh, that's a
Right.
good point. And that's probably when like Slenderman was like popping off. So maybe that's what they drew inspiration from. I wanted hairy goat woman Blair Witch. You know what I mean? I wanted her to peeping Tom her trench coat and have just a full bed of hair.
Right.
So yeah.
I hate
I
it.
do also want to point out real quick, if you guys are looking for a name for your punk rock band anywhere, Hairy Goat Woman Blair Witch is the best punk rock band name I've ever heard. So if you're starting a punk rock band and you need a name, you heard it here first.
Hairy goat woman Blair Witch.
Yeah. You can even,
Trademark now.
HGWBW. That'd be just fine. But in my opinion, I would never tell somebody don't watch something. I would never ever tell anybody that, because if somebody's creating art, even if it's not for me, I hope there's an audience for that art.
Yeah.
I really did not like Book of Shadows, Blair Witch 2. It was very Hollywood. It was not found footage at all, and it had nothing to do with the first movie. It was just them trying to capitalize on the name to make a quick buck. Wasn't for me. Maybe if you watched it, you might like it. But me personally, it's just one that I would never ever have any interest in watching again. So now, Brandon, I want to about Nightmare on Elm Street 2, a movie that, like you talked about, you got the Grady scene where he's in there and he's pounding on the door. One of the scariest moments in all of movie history. But there's very few and far between kills in Nightmare on Elm Street 2. But do you remember which kill it was that affected you the most?
Well, I think it's when he killed Grady coming out of his body. I think it was more just a situation of like being trapped in that room, not being able to get out, and like Freddy Krueger's like right there in the room with you. So that's pretty damn terrifying.
Yeah.
It's also such a simple concept because like you feel so safe in your bedroom where
Yeah.
you're supposed to. Like it's such an easy way to get scared. I don't know. Yeah.
Like with your friend, and then it's
Yeah.
like, oh shit.
It isn't.
Yeah. And it's funny because that's a movie that really did spark a lot of controversy because it was the gay Freddy. And it's funny because Dead Meat James, like, he brought it up on his episode of the Kill Count on it. It's like, listen, every 80s horror flick had boobies. If one movie with man ass offends you, I think the problem is you, not the movie.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that we finally had a bunch of people, because I was so young, I didn't realize it. I
I didn't know either.
Like, I didn't realize the gym coach dancing in the leather. Like, to me, it was just like, hey, he's at the club. That's cool.
Yeah.
Whatever. But like, I'm so glad that we finally, as a society, have come around on movies enough to where it's like, it's still a horror movie, man. Like, horror movies have had messages since the beginning of time. Every horror movie has been socially relevant in some way in their film. So if that's what's holding you back from liking this movie, again, I think that says more about you than it does the flick. So I am going to start with you this time, Ryan. We're talking about Poltergeist. And whenever we talk about really a franchise film, I always ask, because Poltergeist essentially has 4 films in that franchise now. You got the first 3, which have the connective tissue, and then the remake from 2015. Of those 4 films now, which Poltergeist film would you say is your favorite of the bunch?
So I have to be honest and say the Poltergeist franchise is not like my favorite franchise. I would say Poltergeist 3 probably was my favorite one out of them. The remake, I wasn't really that into.
Oh,
Just
that
like
remake.
it didn't have the magic that like the first ones did. It just didn't feel super inspired or like super necessary. The other ones I haven't really like returned to and watched the franchise in like quite some time. But just in terms of like my memory of what I enjoyed, I think the third one I would have to say probably.
Me too. I get shit for it all the time. I think the third one is fucking phenomenal. And one thing I will say about the remake that I give a lot of credit to, because Ashley and I just did a versus episode on the Poltergeist original versus the Poltergeist remake, and in doing a lot of the research on it, when they went into filming, the first thing they said when they were casting was, we're not going to have Carol Ann. The little girl's name is not going to be Carol Ann. We don't want a blonde hair, blue-eyed girl. Heather was Carol Ann. That's it. So the little girl's name in the movie is Maddie. They changed her name. They got a young lady with dark hair, dark eyes. they wanted the complete opposite of what Heather O'Rourke was, because that's already happened and you're not going to replace that young lady. So let's get the complete opposite and try to make her our own. And I thought that was a beautiful little tribute to Heather O'Rourke, you know, because this young lady was 12 years old when she passed away from a medical misdiagnosis. You know, she had a bowel obstruction and they thought she had IBS. So they were giving her the wrong medicines and the obstruction burst and it killed her. And, you know, that to me, like for them to say Heather was Carol Ann and we're not going to do that again. We're not going to taint that. Like that to me gained that movie a couple points right there, just because that was the right thing to do as a human being. So, but Poltergeist 3 is the best. I will agree with that. So now we're going to go down the line. And what stinks here, Mike, you're not going to get to cheat. Brandon and Ryan, you're going to get to be cheater pumpkin eaters here for a second, because I like to mix up the questions, but now I'm going to ask all three of you the same question. Brandon and Ryan, you guys are going to get to think about it for a little bit. Mike, you're going right off the top of your head, man.
Okay.
My little buddy Ghostface is here now, and he has a question for you. What's your favorite scary movie, Mike? What is your favorite horror movie of all time?
This switches, I feel like, every time I get asked. So I'm gonna just say Alien. That movie still holds up to this day. I think sci-fi movies are, even today, are really trying to recreate what it did. The creature design, the Geiger stuff is so terrifying. So yeah, I think that's my favorite horror movie.
I don't think anybody could argue with the fact that that's a fantastic choice. So, well, I'm going to ask. All right, Brandon, now it's your turn. What's your favorite scary movie, Brandon? What is your favorite horror movie?
Hellraiser, hands down.
Oh, the OG one.
What was that?
The OG Hellraiser?
Oh, OG, yeah, not that new one. No, OG. I'd say the first and second, like as one movie, are my favorite. I love them so much. Huge fan of like horror fantasy and Clive Barker. There's nothing like it.
What I love about Hellraiser is like everybody's always like, man, the Cenobites are so badass. I'm like, man, what? Julie is the fucking antagonist in the first movie, man, and she's so fucking scary.
Yeah.
Like, she got D so good. She's willing to kill everybody to bring that guy back. She's like the chick on the Titanic. Like, it's been 84 years, and I'm still thinking about that one time he got me in the car. You know, like Julia is just something else, man. Like, good on you, you know, Uncle Frank. Good job, you know, congratulations. But
her acting brought that movie to a level too.
Oh, everybody talks about how horrifying that movie is. I don't think enough people talk about how great the body horror in that movie is. Like, the body horror throughout that movie is just so fantastic. It's such a sexy, beautiful movie. Like, huge fan, love it to death. So, you've got to think the most, Ryan. But now it's your turn. What's your favorite scary movie, Ryan? What is your favorite horror movie?
I think a top contender is Rosemary's Baby. I've seen it several times. It's funny because like it's not as, I love like gory, like, you know, fun, campy stuff. Like Hellraiser is definitely up there, probably in my top 10 favorite horror movies. But yeah, like it just, the whole thing, like the characters, the character development, the acting, the casting, the story, everything. It's got like folk horror elements, which I love. It's got, you know, a fun cult. It's got like the mystery, the paranoia.
It's got Mia Farrow from Rosemary's Baby haircut.
Yeah, it's got the haircut. Yeah. What more could you
America's
want?
Next Top Model.
So yeah, I love it for not just the horror elements, but also like a lot of other things too. But, yeah.
Oh, it's a fantastic shot film.
Yeah.
Like the way that film was shot and put together is just, you're always feeling uneasy. You're always like, you're always nervous. And especially if you've gone into it unspoiled, like, what the fuck is happening? What is going on? Like, I love these choices because they're all movies that I absolutely adore. So, I've had an amazing time talking to you guys about your first horror movies, your favorite horror movies, some of the projects you've worked on. But before I let you go, I always end this with the same question, and I'm going to go in a reverse order this time. This time, I'm going to start with you, Ryan. We're going to bounce back to the beautiful Poltergeist 3, and what we're going to do is rank this movie on a skull count. No, we're not ranking it on acting, production, score, direction, nothing like that. We're not being critics. All we're doing is ranking Poltergeist 3 on how much it affected you on your first viewing. So 0 skulls being not effective, 5 being extremely effective. You can use half and quarter skulls anywhere in the middle. Ryan, what would your ranking of Poltergeist 3 be?
I'd say 4.5 skulls.
That's a perfect ranking. I was gonna say, if you say anything lower than 4, I'm gonna dare you to go stand in a mud puddle right now.
Yeah.
Damn it. So great choice. So Nightmare on Elm Street 2, same question. Not on how great the movie is, but how much it affected you with 0 to 5 skulls. What would your ranking be?
Oh, it'd be a hard 5.
I don't like, another thing is that, and I'm not being funny, anything like that. We used to, when we were in school, junior high, high school, people used to whip each other with towels in the bathroom. Because of Nightmare 2, I was like, don't fucking come near me with that towel. You saw what happened to Coach in the locker room shower, right? Do not come near me with that fucking towel. And last but not least, Mike, what would your ranking of the Blair Witch Project be?
I'm also gonna go with 5. I was just thinking about it, and I remember even when I was like 20, I went camping. And I remember we woke up in the middle of the night and we heard something outside the tent, and my immediate thought was like the tent scene in the Blair Witch Project. You know what I mean? There was no logic. It wasn't like, oh, it could be a deer or a raccoon. It was like, no, Blair Witch is here. Yep. Where's the hunting knife? Let's there's
an old hairy goat lady outside our tent right now.
Old hairy goat lady giggling outside. So yeah, definitely a hard 5.
And I gotta know, have you seen the alternate endings of the Blair Witch Project?
I don't think I have.
Either.
I don't know if I want to. Like, I'm curious, but I know.
There's between 4 and 6 of them. I can't remember the exact number.
Oh,
they are all in one video on YouTube. I can send you the link when we're done here.
Oh, please.
They definitely went with the best one, but a couple of them are pretty badass. I remember I used to have it on VHS, and it was like, watch through the credits for the alternate endings. And I was like, whoa. And even as a kid, I was like, wow, these are cool. But the first one was better. Like the original one is scarier, but I'll make sure I shoot you guys over that link. And for all you watching, I'll also put that link down in the description. So if you haven't seen the alternate endings of the Blair Witch Project, please check those out. Maybe you'll like one more than the original one you got. And I know I said it at the beginning, guys, but we're at the end of the 3rd act. The credits are about to roll and the curtain's about to drop. But before that happens, please make sure you are following these guys on social media. Make sure you're checking out the films. I have those links down in the description as well. I promise you will not regret it. Guys, please don't go anywhere. I got a couple more questions for you.
Sure.
Everyone else, if you haven't already, please like and subscribe. It really helps the channel more than you know. And follow Sledgehammer Horror on social media. All our links are in the description as well. But until next time, keep talking horror, stay what you are, and we'll see you guys soon.